Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's Thursday the 16th of September. It's morning time, it's just after Dhuhr, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. This morning we were very fortunate to have a meeting with the army commander who was in charge of Risalapur, which is a town literally right next to Nowshera. He spoke in some detail, as did his other senior colleagues, about the scale of the disaster and how much is going on. Just as we're passing by now, just the side of the road, you can see some of the aid which is being distributed. If I can show you, this is all the aid which is being distributed from various organisations. Oh, I've blown the horns. So all of this is the aid which is coming from international organisations and various local charities as well. So the commander, the army commander this morning, who was in charge of the area, was speaking about the devastation. Even their camp was affected by the flooding, by the flood water. They were speaking about buildings which are 1 or 2 stories high being absolutely submerged. And the army really has led the way in the initial efforts in terms of evacuating the people and getting the people to safety, and now in terms of providing shelters for them and food and medication. The hospitals have been opened up, the army hospitals have been opened up to the public free of charge to treat them for any conditions and ailments they may be suffering from. The hospitals actually, the one district hospital in Nowshera was completely destroyed and is unworkable right now as a result of the floods, which has meant that anybody who is sick enough to need admission from the hospital, who needs admission to hospital, needs to come from Nowshera, from the relief camps, to Risalapur, which is about a 15-minute drive, where the army then has to assess them and decide whether or not to admit them into their hospital. So resources are incredibly limited, incredibly scarce. The sorts of stories that we're hearing are absolutely phenomenal. One of the captains was good enough, to take some time out and actually accompany us to a local village, which probably housed about over 100 families, and we just saw for ourselves firsthand the utter devastation which the floods have wreaked. We spoke to kids as young as 5 and older people as old as 80, and they mentioned how in the morning the floods were just 3 or 4 feet high. They then thought that they'd use their opportunity to evacuate women and children and then to come back to get their goods, but by the time they came back, the floods waters were 14, 15 feet high. It's absolutely phenomenal. The army base is approximately 2 kilometers away from the river, and the army base itself, parts of which were flooded up to 6 foot high, so you can just imagine how much water, just the sheer amount of water that's been moving. Speaking to people there, all they want is just building material. They're willing to build themselves, they just need the material. It's September already, winter time, there's frost on the ground, so these people are now back under tents. There's not long to find them some proper shelter which they can take refuge from the winter within. So that really needs to be a priority project after the distribution of some of these medications. During our time there, we also a 9-year-old boy was brought to us, and he was recently diagnosed as having a hole in his heart, which means that he can't walk very far without getting breathless. His long-term prognosis is poor. He'll probably die from the condition if it's not treated, and they're just asking us if there's any way for us to find sponsorship for him. It'll probably cost around £1,000 for surgery for him in a complete package. So this is something which we need to again look into urgently in terms of finding money for. Otherwise, without it, this boy will have at least a stunted growth. His mental faculties wouldn't quite develop as other children would, and he would most probably die at a fairly young age. So that's something else we're looking into. It's really quite moving, really quite harrowing. People are saying that these sort of floods they haven't seen in their generation. An old man told us that he hadn't seen these sorts of floods in over 100 years. It's just completely caught everybody by surprise. These people are proud people. They don't want handouts. They don't want to sit on the side and ask for money. They just want building materials and then build things with their own hands. So really, really moving. And I'll update you, inshallah. We're now on our way to one of the medical camps where we'll see some more what's going on, and hopefully, inshallah, we'll update you then. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.